Hey YouTube, it's Aaron. We're here with another video in the Tippmann A5 series. I guess I've been becoming very popular lately because I've been getting high requests for more and more videos, which is kind of unusual considering how old this gun is. So today's video, we're going to be discussing how to clean and maintain your Palmer's Pursuit regulator, or male stabilizer as they like to call it. I just call it regulator because that's what the fuck it is. All right, so what you want to do here, first off, is you want to remove your ASA. Now, the reason why I do this, okay, is because for some odd reason on this braided cable, when I go to turn the nut, the whole line twists. It doesn't actually unscrew. I don't know why. It's just a very tight ass fitting. It's tighter than a nun's asshole. So the whole line twists, resulting in line damage and eventual leaks. So I just take the ASA off and take the regulator off and set the gun aside and work on it from there. So first off, what you want to do is you want to remove your ASA screws. I'm going to say screws because with this type of ASA, it's going to be a little bit different because I have custom screws in here. I have Phillips screws, okay, because I just went to a local Home Depot and just grabbed them there. They're the same threads, same size as the stock screws. Actually, I think, as a matter of fact, these are a little bit bigger than the stock screws. So I have a little bit of depth and then some, and plus they're thread locked. So when I go and do any dives and slides, they don't come off. Okay, so now that that's been removed, remove your trigger frame and take out your push pin for your reg. Slide that back. Set the gun aside. And there we go. All right, so now, this reg can come apart 3 different ways. Here at the bottom, here at the center-ish, we call that the bottom works because that's where your spring sits. In here is your piston housing. So your piston is in here as well as that's it, your piston. And up here, we have a ghost in this house, I swear to fucking God. And we have our top works, which contains a small spring, a seat, and a pin. And I'll show you that when we get in there. So there's a few ways of doing this. What I like to do personally is loosen off the bottom spring. If you have access to coins, which my ass does not, right at the moment, it's best to use a quarter. I guess if you're American, I guess you could use a $50 to get in there, because I do not have a, what do you call it, a flathead screwdriver that is, I don't know, 2 inches wide, 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. Up here in Canada, we have Loonies and Toonies. It's a $1 and $2 coin. Yeah, we fucking named our goddamn coins after the Looney Tunes. Sounds really funny on the street when you get mugged. Give me your fucking Looney Tunes. That's what homeless people say. Give me your Looney Tunes. Sounds so sweet and innocent when you get robbed. So what I ended up doing is using, I can't remember what kind of ring clamps that are these, I don't know what the fuck, I don't know. I just use them, it works. So I take off the bottom. So I unscrew the bottom here, just to relieve pressure on the spring, and then turn. Okay, so instead of the bottom coming off, the bottom works come off. Now, the reason why this reg comes apart in 17 different areas is because they have replacement parts. So if anything bad goes wrong to this, which I doubt ever will, you can replace it. So there's your spring, and you have like a little shim at the bottom there. It's a little plate that your screw pushes up against the spring to adjust the pressure. Okay, so inside you have your piston. So what you could do is with that, grab a pair of needle nose pliers, and at the end there you'll see it like a little nipple. You just kind of grab a hold of that nipple with your pliers and you pull that right out. And there you go. Oh my God, look at all that shit. So after a while, I'd say after about a couple of cases, you may want to clean it. So if you're new to these regulators and you're using it all the time, you may want to clean it every time you use it for the first little bit to kind of help break it in, and it makes it easier on the reg. So just wipe everything off. We do not, and I'm going to repeat this probably 3 times, do not use grease. Grease. Do not use grease. Because what happens to this particular reg, it is an oil-based reg. It does not take grease and will not accept grease as a member of its family. Grease is unacceptable in this line of work. Like, look at that shit. And that's just from light to moderate use lately. So you want to wipe out the inside of the housing. Make sure you get all of the excess oil and all dirt, bits of rubber from the O-ring. Okay, and what I'll do here is I'll show you the inside. Okay, so here, there's that seat and that pin. That brass nut in there comes out. Do I really want to take that out? Not really, but I'll show you anyways. Maybe I won't. So this comes out. This piston housing can also come off. That's why this thing splits into 3 different spots. So if your piston ever destroys the inside of this reg housing, you can actually call up Palmer's Pursuit and get another piston and piston housing and replace it without having to buy a whole new reg. Awesome, because a lot of regs, you're buying a new reg. So for this particular one, they're helping you save money in the long run. So just make sure she's clean. You'll hardly ever have to take that brass nut out. But what's behind that brass nut is a plastic seat. It's kind of like a seal. It's not rubber like you think it would be. It's just a plastic disc that it sits between the pin and that brass nut. I think it's a seal of some sort, and I don't know really how to explain it because nobody's explained it to me. Palmer's doesn't really have an instruction manual on this, which is kind of fucked. It's something you got to figure out on your own. So I found if you have a reg creeping problem, so if you take a shot and your PSI is set to 800 and it starts to kind of slowly creep over to like 850, 900, and then eventually make up to 1,000, you may want to take that out and clean that and oil that as well. Because that could be a very bad problem. It could also be very dangerous. You could blow the fuck out of your gun or blow it apart. I know the A5s are rated at about 850 PSI. So that's that. Like, there's nothing much more I could say. So having said that, what we're going to want to do now is I use Tippmann, okay? Jesus Christ. Tippmann certified oil. Okay, so it's for the Tippmann. I use this to oil up the hammer, the inside of the valve. I do not put any on the trigger assembly at all because that's just stupid. So all I do here is put a drop on the inside of the housing. That's all you need is a drop. Take your pinky, okay? Make sure that you evenly distribute that throughout the inside of the housing, okay? Excellent. There's an O-ring just out there, just on the threads there, okay? So you may want to get a little bit on that, so this way you don't have any leaks. If you find that it's cracked or damaged, you may want to replace that. I'm not sure what size the O-ring is, but next you put a drop of oil on the piston ring. Oops, I think that's a little much, but that's okay. Just make sure that the O-ring looks wet and the O-ring is in good shape and is not damaged. There we go. Okay, now that you've done that, you take your piston, slide it back up in there. Perfect. Now, you'll wipe this off. Your bottom works. So the bottom works is what holds your spring. So first thing that should go in, if you're taking apart at this section. And here's another piece of advice. If you're going to clean this reg, don't use shitter paper because it's very fibrous and it leaves a lot of shitter paper fiber in there, and that will mix up with the oil and mix up with the rubber from the O-ring when it wears down, and it becomes very gummy, very sticky, and you're going to have a lot of problems. So use microfiber or J-cloth or even paper towel works great. Okay, so we'll put this little disc in, I guess. Okay, you can also put a couple drops of oil on the spring. Looks like this spring already has a decent amount of oil on it, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, and then just screw this back together. I think in the next video I'm going to take the brass nut out and actually show you that, but right now this reg doesn't really need that at this point. And you could just tighten that right the hell up. So next time, I think I'm gonna go out and grab a fucking Looney Tooney, and then I'll fucking show you how to do it from the bottom. Okay, so at this point, what you'll do is just kind of screw in your nut just a little bit. And don't worry, we're gonna air up the gun, we're gonna set the pressure, and I'll show you how to do that as well. So from here on out, everything is tight, everything is back together, and we will just reassemble the gun. So that was pretty quick and simple, and it's very typical. It's like maintaining any other reg out there, but this one here, I think it needs a little bit more maintenance, a little bit more service more often than most. Okay, put our push pins back in. All right, screw our screws back in. Typically I'd be throwing some thread lock on these, but unfortunately I don't have thread lock on hand. I gotta go out to a hardware store and get some more. So seeing that it's like around the corner to Christmas, I won't be playing until probably March, April. So I have all the time in the world to thread lock these. And that's so this way, if you, like I said, if you do any dives or slides, this ain't gonna be coming off at all. All right, so there we go. Rig has been partially maintained. Like I said about that brass nut and that pin inside, you don't really need to service that unless you're noticing creeping problems. And this reg, it doesn't really show creeping problems at all. All right, so let's grab a tank. So I got actually 1500 psi in there, which is perfect. That's just enough. All right. Always cock the gun first. Okay, and then I'll air it up and then show you where she airs up to. Okay, so we're sitting about just 700. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn that in clockwise, and then we're gonna crank that up to about 8. Now, as we're doing this, because I had somebody ask me this in the comment section in one of my previous videos. Okay, yeah, I'm turning the nut, but the pressure ain't going up or down. Now, with this kind of reg, you're gonna have to dry fire it a couple of times, do a couple of clearing shots, and then the pressure will drop or raise on its own that way. It won't just do it automatically. So right now, turned it at clockwise, I think quarter turn. The needle didn't move, it's still at 700. So the best thing to do, okay, we'll turn it back in a little bit more. Degas it, gas it back up. Sometimes that works. No. All right. Unusual. Man. Man. Okay, we're getting up there now. Oh, keep that against my chest, I guess. A little bit more. A little bit more. There we go. Oh, just a little too high. Turn it down. So that's how you set it, okay? Now we are at 800. So now that you got it set to the pressure that you're gonna rate it at, so we say that this one's set at 800 psi for operating pressure, 850s, anywhere in that range is acceptable. Anything less than 800 or anything more than 850 is too much. 850 is okay, but you're pushing it, I kind of find. Now, certain tanks have output pressures of 750. I think the more modern tanks, high pressure is considered 750, which in my opinion is absolutely not enough for these guns. So that's why I got the reg. Some tanks put out 800 or more, some put out 750 or less. Now, low pressure tanks are anywhere between 200 to 450. Now, if you get the Ninja SLP, the super low pressure, you're looking about maybe 200 psi tops coming out of that tank at a time. So this one here is a high pressure tank. It pops out about 900 psi because I also have an extra shim stack in there to kind of bump it up because it was sitting at about 750. And once again, I just found it wasn't enough. So now here's a little test to see if your reg is working properly. It's called the gas and degas method. So we're gonna gas it up. Okay, make sure it's gassed up all the way. Okay, sprung back to 800. Degas it. Gas it back up. Now, if you notice any fluctuations, you may want to adjust it just a little bit, just to compensate to be where you want to be. So far, this is 800 every time. It's actually working out beautifully. So now the second test you could do is just putting a couple of semi-automatic dry fires through it. All right, so let's do that. Put some shit out right here. All right, here we go. I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but see that? Stays right at 800. It doesn't move, doesn't go anywhere. Beautiful. So now that she works and she's working properly, I'm not seeing any creeping of that needle. That needle is just steady. And that's what I'm saying. Once you get the reg broken in, you're never, ever going to have to reset this reg ever again, unless you're taking it apart and maintaining it. But that's the only time you're going to be resetting it. Once you're out in the field, you're playing, you're never going to have to touch it again. Simple as that. And another piece of advice, never try to adjust your velocity through this nozzle down here, through this Allen key. Through this adjuster screw. Do not adjust your velocity through this adjuster screw. It doesn't work like that. You'll only be raising the operating pressure of the gun, and it should be no more than 850. So if you're noticing anything more than that, you're probably going to be blowing some seals, and you're going to be having a little bit of damage done to the gun. Just adjust it, keep it at 8, and that should be okay. Maybe in the future, we'll probably try to drop our pressure a little bit just to see how low we can get it before we see fluctuations in consistency over the chronograph. I think that'll be a future project, probably during the summer when it's a little bit warmer out, because right now it's just really shit. So, yeah, other than that, that's pretty well the basic maintenance of the reg on this gun. So let's put a little strip through it. This is semi-automatic. Okay, sounds great. Runs fine. No issues here. So it's a little loud because we're in the house. Yeah, she works great. So if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to comment below and hit that subscribe button. Other than that, guys, that's pretty well it. Thanks for watching.